It's been 3 weeks since we had the coup in Niger, where the soldiers from the presidential guard, deposed Mohamed Bazoum in Niger as the president. And looking at that challenge where the government was toppled and issues concerning how to, bring the constitutional order back to Niger has been what the world has been discussing. The Economic Community of West African States, under the leadership of the Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been on his toes to make sure that issues in that regard tackled. And there was an institution of a standby force that have been activated, and of course sanctions along that side. But there seems to be respite coming again in the direction of the military junta getting ready to also dialogue with ECOWAS. Well, discussing all of this with me, I have a very seasoned political economist, and he is a social media influencer, Ibrahim Momo. Thanks for joining me, Ibrahim.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Philip.
All right, well, let's look at the issues surrounding this subject. Do you see some respite coming in the direction of the activities of the Islamic cleric that we had just now over their meeting with the military junta, and the readiness of the military junta, to discuss with the ECOWAS body in order to resolve these issues?
Well, thank you very much. I think the first point to make is that it is important that we exhaust all forms of dialogue, all avenues of negotiation or discussions or jojo, as one of my senior friends will say, than before we go to war. But again, ECOWAS has pointed out that all options are on the table, because when you foreclose an option, it gives the intransigent opportunity to misbehave. So in the ECOWAS negotiation or diatribe with the military junta headed by General Tichani in Niger, the best possible outcome is the one that will be achieved through dialogue. And so whereas initially the junta rebuffed moves by the ECOWAS, sending I think one of the heads of states of a West African country to them, they have met initially with General Abdulsalam Abubakar of Nigeria and the Sultan of Sokoto. They've also met with the head of the Tijaniya Society, which is indeed covers the entire West Africa, former Emir of Kano and former CBN Governor Sanusi Lami Sanusi. But they have refused to meet with official ECOWAS delegation. And the premise for which they refused was that ECOWAS was an aggressive body. They have ordered military action or a military force to be on standby. Yeah. So, but we are seeing that a couple of clerics, including the head of Izalatu Bidya, will come out to soon now, a religious sect within the Muslim fold, another Muslim jurist, sought the permission of the chairman of the heads of states and governments of ECOWAS, of the ECOWAS countries, and got the approval to intervene and mediate. So for now, I think what we can say is that yes, it's a welcome development, but we should be more interested in the outcome. Does it lead to the restoration of constitutional order, or is it just negotiation for the purpose of negotiation ad infinitum? This, I think, is the matter of having a goal, laser being focused as to what is the outcomes we are expecting from this negotiation.
That's actually lying on the suspense, and that's what we're going to be looking at. We also will be looking at the institution of the standby force by ECOWAS, and how that will also bring about developments in the area where we can say it won't really escalate, because some are saying that there should be need for ECOWAS as a body to be very, very decisive, but not to be hasty, and to ensure that they don't do anything or take decisions that will bring about a side effect. Well, while we had a break, we were opportune to be joined by a political analyst and also a politician in the person of Honorable Fred Oyigwe. Thanks for joining me, Fred.
Thank you for inviting me.
The issues about the Niger coup that ousted the president, past president of Niger, in the person of Mohamed Bazoum, is still hitting the headlines today. And what do you see about the standby force activation by ECOWAS? Do you see that as a welcome development in tackling this uprising?
I actually believe that is hasty and premature. Dialogue and diplomacy ought to be given sufficient time, to resolve the issues. I know it is the desire of West African countries, like in most modern countries, to promote democracy, especially here in West Africa too, where we have had a series of coups over the past 50 years. But that does not mean that we should not respect the internal governance of our sovereignty of other nations. That what has happened in Niger is internal to Niger. We can only try to dialogue with them, try to persuade them to toe the line of, or to return to democratic practice as soon as possible, but not to go with a show of force. What comes to mind is why the haste with Niger? Burkina Faso is under military, Mali is under military, I think Guinea too is under military. Not to go to East Africa, Chad too is under military. So it's called the COUP belt because they all have boundaries together. Niger was the only country that did not have a military government that now has a military government.
Okay.
Perhaps there is a fear that it will spread across the West African countries. That's the other countries that have been practicing democracy now for a while. That fear is not unfounded, given the fact that, as the proponents of the coups have argued, that there are sit-tight governments springing up across Africa, even in West Africa, where presidents are perpetuating themselves and amending constitutions to continue in office after the expiration of their tenures. So these are all matters that have to be considered.
Okay. Let's look at the aspect where the military force of Nigeria are present to a huge extent outnumbers that of the standby force by the ECOWAS. Now, do you see the leadership of the ECOWAS under the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu as taking right steps in the direction to rejig or expand or boost the number of the activation force?
Well, it is not to be envisaged or by any means to be thought of that there is ever a time the total Nigerian military force will be anywhere close to the ECOWAS standby force. It's not something that we can even envisage because it's not even, what is the total population of the Nigerian military? It is not even up to the population of the smallest state in Nigeria. By stretch, it's clear. The reality is that ECOWAS...
Because from the Constitution, we have about close, not even up to 1,700 yet, that constitute the force that has been...
standby force.
Yes, constituted, yes. as compared to Niger that has over 2,500.
No, the reality is that Nigeria military alone is in the region of about 250,000. And then you have that when you do conventional warfare, contemporary warfare, it's not only about boots on the ground. It's not only about the cavalry, the infantry, which is the technical word to use. It's also about, the Air Force. It's also about the Naval Force. It's also about the fighter jets. It's also about the arms and ammunition at the disposal of the... Nigeria may not even need to add one single personnel to the military deployment of ECOWAS. But it can supply so much in terms of Air Force. It can supply so much in terms of weapons, arms and ammunition, and so on and so forth. So Nigeria does not... So I'm saying that if you look at the total population of the Nigerian army, it's about 12,000. Total population of the Nigerian army. So it's about the smallest army in West Africa among the member states. And there are 15 member states of ECOWAS. And then to the point, very important point that he made, there's this contagion effect.
Yes, of course.
Which we needed to nip in the bud. The process of acquiring political power, it's not through the jackboot, it's not through military purchase, it's not through coup d'etat. It is through elections and winning of those elections. It is not, there are no two ways about, it's not even to be contemplated that the military has a role to play in the governance of the country. No. In fact, when you complain, when the military, the excuse that is often given for military purchase is the fact that they can talk about the invasion of non-violent, non-state actors. In West Africa, you have the Boko Haram, for example. You have the ISWAP, Islamic State of West African Province. You have other terrorists and violent non-state actors operating within the region. That's one of the reasons the military advance. In Niger, they also talk about talk about seat-titism. You see, for example, Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire and Macky Sall of Senegal have attempted, to perpetuate themselves in office. You also talk about For Nasigbe, whose father, Nasigbe Yadema, was the head of state. Upon his demise, the son took over. You can talk about perpetuation of power in countries like Benin Republic, like Côte d'Ivoire, like Senegal. But none of these countries have experienced military coups. In fact, what's disheartening is the fact that Mohamed Bazoum, the president of Niger, is less than 2 years in office. He has not been accused of bad governance. He has not been accused of perpetuation of himself in power. He's not been accused of any of these ills that other member states of the ECOWAS region have been accused of. So, except that he was about to sack the head of the presidential guard, Ahmed Tichani.
Okay. Alleged.
He was about to sack.
Alleged.
Of course, that information was out there. Again, even the accusations that have been given were all allegations, alleged too. And then just before that, he moved against the president. Because what we have not seen, really, is the statement by the larger military body of Military Council of Niger is calling for a peaceful resolution of the crisis. That's what they have called. 13 non-governmental organizations, 13 main non-governmental organizations in Niger have also written to the Nigerian president as head of the authority of heads of states and governments of the West African sub-region, that the sanctions being placed on Niger is hurting them hard. And then finally, on this point, is to add that Nigeria did not, or ECOWAS did not intervene when there was a coup in Guinea, apart from sanctions. ECOWAS, and indeed Nigeria, did not intervene in Chad, they didn't intervene in Mali, they didn't intervene in Central African Republic. They didn't intervene in all these countries. But Nigeria and ECOWAS realized that there is a kind of bandwagon effect. Roll back to 2000, there was no coup. 2001, we had one. So between 2001 and now, we have had some unsuccessful coups. 7 in total in West African sub-region. there is that contagion effect, you know, which is one of the ways we looked at one of the causes of military coup, the contagion effect. And look, I can point that again. If you look at those countries, it's like a belt now, from Niger to Chad to Mali, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Guinea. These are a belt.
Okay.
And then Niger is right there on top of Nigeria.
Thank you.
You have.
Go ahead.
You have about seven states in Nigeria that are bordering Niger. Any instability, if Nigeria allows for that instability to continue in Niger, definitely it will have a blowback on Nigeria. Jigawa, Sokoto, Borno, and several other countries are all bordering Nigeria. I don't think that's something that Nigeria as a country should accept or should allow to happen.
Okay. Let's take your reaction in that, and most especially when it seems the other side of the story, you know, where you feel the pulse of the nationals of Niger. There seem to be some opposition against ECOWAS, you know, to intrude into the affairs. How do you manage this alongside
and this is
force?
This is what we term as legitimacy, acceptance. There seems to be wide acceptance, as we have seen by the
Nigerians,
by the mass support on the streets of Nigerians for the push. Okay, but to come to your last point, that because Niger borders some 7 or so states of northern Nigeria, Nigeria should react. Just as Niger borders some states in northern part of Nigeria, so also do Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea border some other West African countries. So why should it be now that because a country that has borders with Nigeria has experienced coup, that will now tell the other people that, oh, never mind, it is this is inimical to us, this is threatening to us. And to come to what you have said about the sanctions, things that I don't believe we have even nearly exhausted diplomatic means to this resolution. So we need to activate that and exhaust it. And if we want democracy, look, the intervention, military intervention in governments should not be an absolute no-no. When there is chaos, when there is chaos, when there is anarchy in the system, then it should be expected that chaos will not resolve itself. Anarchy may not resolve itself. So there may be need to stem the damage that is ongoing by an intervention, which has been the excuses given by military putchists across over the years. And not all have been bad. Okay, today we have a united Nigeria in the books. It is because the military intervened at the time. If the military had not intervened, we probably would not have a united Nigeria today. Okay, but it should come with an understanding that their place is actually in the barracks, and that once they have intervened, they should quickly restore democratic governance to the people, so that the people will have an opportunity to choose their leaders. Okay, that quickly. Is what democracy is all about. Okay, quickly. Giving the people the opportunity. Quickly in 30 seconds, starting with you, Ibrahim Momo, as we close up. Let's look at the leadership of Tinubu, the president, the Nigerian president, in all of this. Do you admire this as steps he's taken so far?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because he has been forceful in a pushback on illegal acquisition of state power. That's something that we should applaud. The idea, any form of illegality in attaining power, to superimpose authority over a people without their permission, that's something that we should condone. And let us realize that in a military coup, in a military or in a aristocracy, the rights of opposition are curtailed. You may not be seeing opposition in Niger or in Mali, it doesn't mean that there are none. It's impossible to have a country where everybody is united. It's impossible. They are human beings. Okay. So those voices of dissent are not allowed to rise. And the last point to make is that, when we talk about the military, the role of the military is not guarding democracy. No, that's not the role. The role of the military is guarding a country's territorial integrity. All right. So for Tinubu, yes, in his standing up against military purchase, but no, apparently in the way, maybe it came too early in his administration, in the way he has handled the issue of Niger, he has not shown that there is a tax. Okay, let's take your bite on that in 30 seconds.
While I will agree with you that the role of the military is external defense, but intrinsically too, should there be destabilization within the country, the military has the responsibility to intervene, because if they don't intervene, there will be nothing to defend externally. So to be able to have something to defend externally, there has to be something stable internally. So it's like I just said earlier, it is not an absolute no-no for military to intervene. When military has intervened, you have to look at the cost-benefit analysis. How does it benefit the people? The main thing, the major thing is bringing benefits to the people. All right, thank you. A lot has been said there. We will continue to engage the process, and of course, it's a continuous talking point in this regard. Big thanks, Fred Uigwe, and of course, big thanks to you, Ibrahim Momo, for taking our time to be part of this. I will take a short break, after which we engage the structuring of the educational sector in Nigeria and looking at the disarticulation of schools in this regard, as it also applies to Edo State. Do stay.